Forget everything you thought you knew about love in the animal kingdom. We're talking about the world of cannibalism, gender bending, and absolute biological chaos. The mating rituals you're about to see are so bizarre, they look like something from an alien planet. In this video, we recounting down nature's S5 shockers. You will see which creature literally shoots a love dart into its partner, the female that eats her mate mid-session, and the terrifying biological reason why some animals must change sex just to reproduce. If you thought romance was complicated, wait until you see the anglerfish. Trust me, you won't look at a date the same way again. Stick around to the very end to find out which of these creatures holds the title for the most extreme sex life on Earth. Let's dive in. The deep ocean is the ultimate test of survival, a black abyss where food is scarce and a partner is almost impossible to find. Imagine a world where romance isn't about candlelight dinners, but about absolute desperation. This is the realm of the deep-sea anglerfish, a creature that has developed one of the most terrifyingly committed relationships on Earth. When a tiny male anglerfish finally detects the pheromones of a massive female, his journey of single life is officially over. He has one mission: to secure a mate, permanently. The male, sometimes 100 times smaller than the female, does not simply court her. He performs an irreversible act of sexual parasitism. He swims directly toward the giant female and clamps down onto her side with his tiny razor-sharp teeth. But the bite is just the beginning of this bizarre eternal embrace. Soon after, he releases an enzyme that literally dissolves the skin around his mouth and his body. The male's tissues begin to merge, fusing him to the female's body wall forever. At this point, the male is no longer an independent fish. He becomes a sexual appendage. His eyes slowly atrophy, his fins vanish, and most of his internal organs completely degenerate. The male's blood vessels fuse with the female's, and he receives all of his nutrients directly from her bloodstream, like an umbilical cord. He sacrifices everything, his independence, his body, his very identity, just to survive and fulfill one purpose. What's truly shocking from a biological standpoint is how the female's body doesn't violently reject him. In any other vertebrate, fusing two different individuals would trigger a catastrophic immune response, killing both. But the anglerfish has evolved a terrifying tolerance, essentially adapting its own immune system to accommodate its mate. She allows a genetically foreign body to become a permanent part of her own biology. The male is now nothing more than a living sperm bank, a guaranteed delivery system for reproduction whenever the female is ready to spawn. She can carry up to 8 of these tiny parasitic males on her body at once, ensuring she never misses a reproductive opportunity in the desolate darkness. It is the ultimate toxic relationship, but one that guarantees the survival of the species, proving that sometimes life's wildest mating tactic is to become one with your lover. But the deep sea isn't the only place where romance gets bloody. If the anglerfish represents biological commitment, the praying mantis represents the ultimate breakup. A fatal attraction where the female decides the most efficient form of postcoital nourishment is her mate. While nature channels often exaggerate this phenomenon, the reality of sexual cannibalism is just as unsettling. It's not about vengeance, it's about maximized prenatal investment. The male risks decapitation for the chance to pass on his genes, knowing his very body could become a vital food source for his future offspring. The female mantis usually begins the grim feast during the mating process, often by biting off the male's head. Surprisingly, the male's abdomen contains a separate nerve center that controls the motions of copulation. This means that even without a brain, the male can continue the process, sometimes even becoming more vigorous once his inhibitions are removed. It's an evolutionary loophole that prioritizes fertilization above all else, making his sacrifice a potential boon for the resulting eggs. Studies have shown that when a female consumes her mate, she can produce up to twice as many eggs compared to females who do not cannibalize their partner. The male's body, rich in proteins and amino acids, transfers directly into the female's reproductive tissues. He is effectively providing an extreme form of child support, a biological deposit that drastically increases the chances of his genes surviving. For the male mantis, the decision is a terrifying gamble: mate and risk being consumed to guarantee his paternity, or survive and search for another mate with lower chances of a successful clutch. To minimize the risk, many males adopt elaborate, cautious approaches, creeping up on the female from behind, often trying to time the act when she is already well fed. Their caution highlights that this act is less about an innate female bloodlust and more about a crucial, brutal need for nutrients. The mantis's fatal attraction demonstrates that sometimes the most powerful form of devotion is the ultimate biological donation. The price of love is literal consumption, but in the brutal calculus of natural selection, that sacrifice is rewarded with reproductive success. It makes you wonder, if a love dart is painful, what happens when two lovers both carry a biological dagger? Moving from predators to garden dwellers, the humble land snail seems an unlikely candidate for brutal courtship, yet their mating ritual is anything but gentle. Snails are simultaneous hermaphrodites, meaning they possess both male and female reproductive organs, and the dilemma of who plays the male role is settled by a precopulatory duel with a biological weapon known as the love dart. This is no gentle Cupid's arrow, it is a sharp calcareous spike. Before any sperm exchange takes place, the two snails will engage in hours of circling and gentle touching, building hydraulic pressure in their bodies. Then, one snail will rapidly fire the hard needle-like love dart at its partner, often piercing the skin and embedding deep into the tissue. This traumatic courtship is a forceful way to start a relationship, and the recipient is often visibly startled or injured by the sudden impact. The dart itself does not transfer sperm. Its function is purely tactical. The mucus coating the dart contains specialized hormones called allomones. Once injected into the partner's bloodstream, these chemicals bypass and influence the recipient's natural defense mechanisms that would normally destroy or expel the received sperm. It's an act of chemical warfare designed to guarantee paternity. For the snail that successfully lands the dart, their chances of fertilizing their partner's eggs can be dramatically doubled. This means the victor in this painful dart fight is much more likely to pass on their genes. If the dart misses or is improperly lodged, the mating is often abandoned, as the crucial hormonal advantage has been lost. This savage act of hormonal coercion shows that even in the world of slow-moving garden creatures, reproduction is a cutthroat competition. Every creature is fighting for genetic dominance, and sometimes the best strategy is to wound your lover to win the evolutionary race. But if snails use daggers to win paternity, what happens when two lovers both carry a biological dagger? The snail's love dart is painful, but the mating ritual of the marine flatworm, a hermaphrodite, takes competitive courtship to a literal fencing match. Because neither flatworm wants to bear the energy-intensive burden of motherhood gestating eggs, finding a safe location, they engage in a dramatic duel known as penis fencing to determine who gets to be the father. This is high-stakes combat where the loser must become the female. The flatworms use their two dagger-like, extendable penises as weapons, rearing up on their tails like tiny vipers. The goal of the fight is not to kill, but to stab and inject sperm into the body wall of their opponent. The battle can last for a tense, mesmerizing hour as they twist and parry, each trying desperately to be the one to pierce the skin of the other. The victorious flatworm, the one who successfully inseminates, wins the coveted male role and can swim away free of the burden of pregnancy. The loser is then forced to absorb the sperm through their body and take on the expensive task of becoming the mother. It's an extreme example of reproductive burden shifting, a literal you get stuck with the bill scenario, driven entirely by the high cost of egg production. This ritual underscores a powerful, rarely discussed truth in nature. The female role is often the more biologically expensive one. The flatworm has evolved this bizarre gladiatorial mating tactic to avoid that high cost. They will fight to the very end, preferring to be wounded by a partner's sharp organ than to carry the heavy load of eggs. The intensity of their duel makes the flatworm one of the most dedicated species to avoiding the mom title. It is a stunning display of reproductive politics, proving that in some species, escaping parenthood is worth a painful fight or at least a puncture wound and 9 months of gestation. But what if you could have the female role and the male role at the same time, permanently? If avoiding the female role is paramount, then being a simultaneous hermaphrodite, possessing full male and female parts, should be a perfect solution. Take the giant banana slug of the Pacific Northwest, one of the largest land slugs in the world, famous for its bright yellow color and unique anatomy. They meet, they court, and they engage in a sticky, slippery mating ritual where both partners exchange genetic material. However, the slug's dual anatomy comes with a terrifying risk. The male organ, called the eversible penis, is disproportionately massive, sometimes extending the length of the slug's entire body. During the intense and often hours-long mating process, the two slugs can sometimes get tangled and physically stuck together by this giant, sticky apparatus, creating a potentially fatal reproductive knot. When separation is impossible, one or both slugs must resort to an extreme and irreversible procedure known as apophylation. One slug will chew off the penis of the other using its tiny toothed radula tongue. It is a moment of pure desperation, where the immediate threat of being permanently immobilized forces a drastic surgical intervention. The slug that loses its male organ is now permanently committed to only the female role for the rest of its life, but at least it survives. The slug that performs the amputation, the reluctant surgeon, frees itself and can continue its reproductive life as both male and female. This bizarre emergency measure highlights the absolute chaos that can arise when anatomy evolves faster than strategy. The banana slug's mating is a sticky, life-or-death scenario where an anatomical over-optimization leads to a surgical emergency. It's a shocking reminder that for these creatures, a reproductive blunder can lead to a drastic anatomical change. But not all anatomical nightmares involve amputation. Some creatures use massive, multi-headed organs to simply flood the market. We've covered cannibals and parasites, but the short-beaked echidna, a prickly, egg-laying mammal from Australia, brings us a challenge of anatomical excess that leaves biologists baffled. The male echidna possesses a unique organ that has evolved into one of the most complex and bizarre structures in the entire animal kingdom, a penis with 4 separate heads. During mating, the male faces a biological puzzle. The female echidna has a cloaca, a single opening for urinary, digestive, and reproductive functions that splits internally into 2 distinct reproductive tracts. To accommodate this, the male's 4-headed organ is employed, but here's where the confusion begins. Only 2 of the 4 heads are ever used at one time. The other 2 simply shut down. The male will alternate between the 2 sets of heads, relying on one set to service one of the female's tracts, then discarding those 2 and using the fresh, unused pair for subsequent mating sessions. Scientists theorize this extreme measure is a unique form of sperm competition, allowing the male to maintain peak function and stamina during the critical, often marathon-long mating ritual. This anatomical oddity ensures that every reproductive attempt is made with the highest possible volume and viability of sperm. It's a relentless evolutionary arms race where a mammal, seemingly content to lay eggs like a bird, has developed a biological redundancy system that would make modern engineers jealous. The echidna is not just mating. It's attempting a biological strategy for reproductive success. This spiky, bizarre creature proves that to survive the competitive jungle of reproduction, sometimes you have to double down on your resources, even if it means having a reproductive system that seems wildly over-engineered. We've seen animals sacrifice their body, their brain, and their freedom for a chance to reproduce, but what is the absolute limit of that dedication? We started with the anglerfish's parasitic dedication, and we end with the Antechinus, a tiny, mouse-like Australian marsupial whose entire life is defined by a single, terrifying reproductive blitz. For the male Antechinus, the mating season is a 2 to 3 week frenzy of non-stop, catastrophic mating that results in the complete and total shutdown of his body. During this brief, intense window, the males are driven by a hormonal tsunami, fueled by massive surges of stress hormones like cortisol. They abandon all other functions, eating, sleeping, even self-maintenance, to focus solely on mating. They engage in marathon sessions that can last up to 14 hours at a time, sprinting from female to female until their bodies experience severe physiological stress. The sustained high levels of cortisol become critically damaging. Their immune systems collapse, they develop internal issues, their fur falls out, and they suffer widespread organ complications. This is not a slow decline. It is a rapid, deliberate biological event driven by reproductive necessity. Every male Antechinus perishes before his offspring are born. This extreme biological sacrifice, known as semoparity, ensures that the male is alive only long enough to pass on his genes, leaving all remaining resources for the female and the next generation. It is the ultimate final act of a father who will never meet his children, proving that in some corners of the natural world, the only way to win the genetic lottery is to pay the ultimate biological price. The Antechinus' final gasp is a powerful capstone to our list of nature's shockers, where the reproductive drive supersedes survival itself. From anglerfish fusion to the final act of a father, these 5 creatures prove that when nature calls, the answer is often stranger, more violent, and more mind-bendingly bizarre than anything we could possibly imagine. And there you have it, the 5 wildest, weirdest mating rituals that prove just how extreme life gets when survival is the only rule. The deep-sea fusion, the lethal love dart, the battle to avoid motherhood, and the ultimate parental sacrifice, these creatures define the thin, terrifying line between life and death in the name of reproduction. It makes you realize that our definition of toxic relationship is just a gentle footnote in nature's epic story. Which of these nature's shockers left you the most stunned? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you want to keep diving into the strange and unbelievable truths of the animal kingdom, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive. And if you enjoyed this journey into biological chaos, please give this video a like. It truly helps the channel grow. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.